Welcome to the Financial Fun Podcast with your host, Tammy Johnston. This is where Tammy talks with business owner parents and grandparents about the interesting and important subject of money. We promise this to be an interesting and open discussion, as that's how we learn best. And now, here's your host, author of the Financial Foundations. Financial Foundations is a series of books to teach kids about money, goal setting, and living a balanced life. Find out more at financialfun.ca. Here's Tammy Johnston.
First things first, I would like to thank all of my listeners that have subscribed and reviewed my podcast and invite you to subscribe and review if you haven't yet. I appreciate you helping us to get the word out and making financial literacy a safe and welcoming subject for kids and adults. Second, please check out my podcast website, financialfun.ca, where you will be able to access past shows, find out more about me and our guests, as well as purchase the beautifully illustrated Financial Foundations books that teach kids about money in a fun, healthy, and holistic way. Hello, and thank you once again for joining us for the Financial Fun Podcast. Today our guest is the dynamic and interesting Malcolm Saunders. Thank you for joining us, Malcolm.
Hey, right on. Thanks for having me on, Tammy.
So, Malcolm, tell us what it is that you do. What are you passionate about?
All right. My main passion is helping you find and learn how to craft your own food and medicine. I do that primarily through a little business I created here in Calgary, Alberta called the Cellar. And yeah, we're a little superfood shop, a retail store that has probably over 2,000 different unique foods, all the way from nut seeds, dried fruits to, sea vegetables, herbs from all around the world, medicinal mushrooms, etc. We have an elixir bar, a production kitchen where we make fermented foods like sauerkraut, and we also make chocolate from scratch.
Oh, I remember your chocolate. Your chocolate is amazing.
Yeah, totally. So that's my main passion is food nutrition and really just breaking it down, keeping it simple and empowering people on their way because, it's confusing out there and it should be easier for us all.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting more and more complicated. So we need people like you to help us wade through it all.
Yeah.
So what got you into this?
Right. Well, it's an extension of my own journey, just exploring the world of food and nutrition, going down these rabbit holes of ideas. And you and I were just chatting before we got on the call recording here in terms of, for a number of years, almost 15 years, I was a vegetarian. And, intellectually, I was so convinced that this is the way to go. And you can watch the documentaries that will, say that, try and prove it, etc. But in the end, there's definite benefits. However, I truly believe we are omnivores and eating from what I call all the four food groups, plants, animals, bacteria, and fungi. That's how we achieve true human health. And of course, we have to make the best choices that we can, that those animals are cared for, raised in a proper way, etc. So yeah, that's been my journey. And through that, kind of found myself on the entrepreneurial path, which I'm loving and I see as one of the more powerful ways that we as individuals can help change the world.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I'm going, business done properly, ethically, and morally is art. It is one of the best things that you can do to change the world. And so many people bash on business, and it's not business that's the problem. It's these gigantic corporations that are all about nothing but profit at any and all costs.
For sure. Yeah. We're going to be talking about the topic of money, of course. And, for me, like, especially as that, teenager, kind of young idealist was really deep into music. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. I was kind of weird. Classic, hippie. Maybe I still am. Anyways.
You're an evolved hippie, dear.
An evolved one. Yes, for sure. So, I had this very negative association and connotation with capitalism, with business. To me, it was what was wrong with the world. Money was evil, etc. And I chose a path of almost like renouncing all that. Like I gave away literally almost all my possessions. All I had was a backpack. I left a box at Mom's house that had a couple journals in it. And I went traveling. I literally hitchhiked around Western Canada, and I would stay at. I just come out of college, and what had really caught my interest at that time was meditation. And I was going to different retreat centers, and I would stay there, just kind of in exchange for work to stay there, to learn, to kind of go deep into it. And yeah, there was a number of years where I just wanted to kind of remove myself from the system, kind of find myself, not participate. And interestingly enough, the culmination of that is I met my then soon to be wife at the time. We did a bit of traveling and we were in India and Nepal, and we ended up getting pregnant. And I came home going like, oh, okay, now I gotta, get a job and provide and, do this kind of thing. And my wife at the time, she tells me, she was very doubtful that I'd pull through. She was like, all right, I'm going to be the provider, my hippie husband, he's going to stay home and raise the kids. But it was actually through her mother that I recreated my relationship to money. She introduced me to T. Harv Eker, and I went to his Millionaire Mind. And, I had always had a good relationship with money in terms of flow. I've never, been in lack, even though at times in my life I've chosen that lack to kind of, obviously I still use money, but, barely anything. I mean, when my wife and I traveled, we went to India for 6 months on $1,200 and came home with money, right? It wasn't, it wasn't a big spending spree or anything. So definitely
you definitely know how to do it frugally.
That's right. So, going to that seminar really shifted my perception about money. And it wasn't just that, it was kind of the years subsequent, seeing money more as neutral, right? It totally is neutral. It's just energy, and it's all about an exchange, and it's how we show up in the world. And I really think, business and being an entrepreneur, like you say, in the best, most noble and ideal of senses is really, it's about solving problems. And, you and I, we met through Tad Hargrave and his idea of niche marketing and marketing for hippies, like getting over that kind of like grossness, that ickiness that, a lot of people feel about marketing. And it's like, well, actually, you have a solution, and marketing is just about being able to reach those people with a problem that you know how to solve and helping them do that. And money is just the common way that we exchange, for that interaction.
Oh, very, very much so. I've worked with a lot of holistic people and stuff, and it's like, they want money because they know that it's necessary to do the things that they want to do in their lives, but they push it away because they treat it like it's something that's evil and dirty. And I'm going, if you are providing value to the world, money is just the way of coming back. And if the only reason you should ever have a problem is if you honestly don't think you're providing any value to the world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously you're married and you have a child. So what is the family situation?
All right. Yeah. Yeah. We're married, and we have, common law, but the institution of marriage, we're kind of locked in that way, one way or another, even though we had our own kind of special ceremony.
Well, you didn't waste any money on an expensive wedding.
No, right. Yeah, just did it our way. It was a glorious fall afternoon, and so we have a almost 13-year-old.
Oh, so you're just getting into the teenage years.
That's right. Yeah, she's 12 now, and it's what a great journey it is.
It's so much fun, but I keep telling my daughter that, you know what, you can slow down on this growth thing, because me having to buy you pants every few weeks is really getting old.
Right. And it's interesting age. I mean, if I think back to kind of my childhood, I think it was around that time that I started getting an allowance and just began to kind of have that money awareness. So, we've been doing a little bit with our daughter. One of the things actually I learned from T. Harv, and I'm sure it's not unique to him, and other people kind of practice it, but this idea of the jar method, that was pretty revolutionary for me of, okay, if you get $100 in, how are you going to break that down? And obviously, for her as a 12-year-old, she doesn't have what would be described as your daily expenses, which,
one of the biggest pluses of being a kid.
Yeah. Right? It's a free ride for a good while. And, so, what might be 60 or 70% of that $100 for most people goes to your rent, goes to food, etc., your bills. And then it's what you do with the rest of it, which I found just totally awesome. And we've shared that with her. And so you've got, and you can designate the percentages, and I'm sure you're very aware of it, this method, but the idea of, okay, 10% of whatever's left over, let's say you got $40, 10% is going to go to, long-term savings. 10% 10% of the total.
Yeah, of the gross, not the net there.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, otherwise that's only $4 in that bucket.
Yeah. Which is better than a lot of people who put $0 in that bucket.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, that was the biggest lesson. Like, even if it's 25 cents, right? It's like over a month, a year, a week, however you're dropping that into the bucket, however frequent, it's all uphill from there. So, you basically break it down, long-term savings, fun. That was actually one thing that was like, I needed for myself, in terms of like, all right, go out and spend some money. And the idea is you put it into your fun pile that you have to spend, and you give yourself kind of a
it
time.
has to be on something fun. Not you're justifying this as fun, like new underwear that I have to get. It's something that's
Right.
actually frivolous. And for some people, that's a challenge.
Yeah, it's so true, right?
So what are some of the other things that you're working on teaching your daughter being a reformed, money-hating hippie?
Right. Well, I think the biggest thing I want to impart to her is that sense of you can create your own abundance, especially in that way of being an entrepreneur. I know personality-wise, it's not suited for everyone. We're not all meant to be entrepreneurs. However, I think most of us, can, and we can take advantage of that. And I think our society eventually can shift and structure to be more, assisting to those that take on the path versus,
I think there's definitely a big swing on that, because if we go back 120 years, so the turn of the century, 19th century, most people were self-employed in some way, shape, or form. Over the 20th century, we became more employee mindset, because that's where our schools are taking us, and the big corporations and that. And then over the last few decades in particular, I'm noticing that with people being downsized and laid off and right-sized, whatever in the world you want to call it, and more of the automation and jobs being offshored and stuff, more and more people are either choosing or being forced into some form of self-employment and things like that. So the mind shift is switching back again, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that. I definitely see that trend as well. And, Calgary, like you say, with its kind of big downturn and, being oil, and I think will always be oil, at least for the next, decade or two. Yeah. But there's a huge growth in the entrepreneurial community and small business community, which is awesome.
And it's people, I'm finding a lot more people are really warming to the idea in general about having more control over their life. Because I've been in business for 15 years and started out working from home, and the idea for me working from home from a lot of people then was like, are you really serious? Or like, are you a real business person if you work from home? And right. Then now when people come and see me at my home office and stuff, they're going, this is great. How can I get a setup like this?
Right. Yeah.
If nothing else, the commute's awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would love to impart that. And I think how that begins, like her and her friend, the other day, they went out and they were like, they'd painted some rocks and they went out to the path. And I mean, she wouldn't have done this herself. It was more her friend that kind of spurred the whole activity on. But they went out and set up a little table and they were like selling painted rocks, and I remember me as a kid, like, having garage sales and only in later years, a reflection of like, wow, I think that even those small little things has a powerful impact and influence on, I believe it did on me. And later when I was in my teenage years, I always avoided jobs. Like the first job I ever applied to, McDonald's, they told me to cut my hair or else they wouldn't give me the job. And it's like, well, forget it.
I don't want the job. I like my hair better.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I didn't get that job. I applied at Callaway Park. I didn't get the job. I don't know. I don't think it was the hair at that time, but and it was like, wow, I'm so glad I didn't, because I always used to piece it together. I'd like, shovel sidewalks or, mow people's lawns, walk dogs, that kind of thing. Just little like kind of piecemeal work. And then, as I was into music as a teenager, busking was actually a big part of what I did for kind of my just fun spending money, 16, 17 and on, and you learn some of these principles of business. It was like we knew when was Friday payday because you'd go to the liquor store and you'd play.
Yeah.
You'd jam out and you'd earn more than any other Friday because it was Friday payday.
Well, one of the things, because with Ayla being 14, she's now legally old enough to get a job, and she's really financially motivated. She wants to get this new Nintendo Switch or something that it is. So she's saving up the money for it, but It's not going as fast as she'd like because it's a fairly expensive item. So she's been going and applying she applied at the McDonald's and she applied at the Tim Hortons and stuff. But they're not really hiring, and because she's so young, they can't put her on the till or anything. So she's actually come up with the idea of she's going to start cat sitting and things like that because it fits in with what she can do, and so she's learning, getting all excited about the business and stuff like that. So I'm going, sometimes not being able to get a job is a really good thing because it teaches you to be a lot more creative and self-reliant.
Totally, and you can leverage your own time. You're now thinking and working outside of the box, which is huge. So that's great.
Although I would actually, when she's a bit older, I really would like her to get a job at McDonald's because, man, the systems and just how the business works and stuff is a great place to learn for a while. Would I want her there forever? Oh no, but...
Yeah, exactly. I remember one year we visited Disney World, and I remember my mother-in-law telling me that a lot of MBA grads will actually go work at Disney just to learn that service aspect, how a business runs, all those systems, exactly like you say.
Yeah, it's great stuff to be able to put on your resume, and also learning how to deal with the horrible people that society will throw at you in those types of jobs.
Right. Yeah.
You definitely have to get your skin thickened in places like that, which is a good skill for all of us. Some of us more than others.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. Actually, and the other thing I like about, the path I've taken and being an entrepreneur and creating my own business is, like Tad, like creating this niche, like to focus on who are the people that you want to serve and interact with, right? That can really help narrow down, to people that you can relate to, and you don't get as broad of a, craziness of characters, at, something like McDonald's.
And I also think a lot of that has become a lot more possible in our time because things like the internet and all the technology, it allows us, you can really specialize, but because you have access to the world, not just your local geographical community, that you can really specialize and still reach a large audience because your audience is the world in a lot of cases. Yeah,
no, for sure. It's phenomenal.
So to finish up here, if you could make sure that your daughter understands 3 things about money when you send her off to be on her own, what 3 things would you and your wife want to make sure that she grasps?
Right. Okay, cool. Number 1, just have that abundance mentality, and not in a frivolous way, but in terms of like, being able, I think, money, again, it's all about energy and our ability to kind of like hold it. So, save and plan and deal with our money properly and intelligently, but have a nice, good flow with it. And that's kind of what I mean by that abundance, receiving in, to see money as neutral, and that it's just energy, and it's all about an exchange of, helping others get what they need so you can get whatever you want, and money will be exchanged in that transaction. And I know those are kind of 2 roundabouts, in that way. And, 3, just to go out, think outside of the box, think beyond trading time for money. I think that's one of the biggest, keys as well and have multiple streams too, as well. That's pretty key.
Yes. I totally love that last one about multiple streams and being able to take care of yourself. So many people think that they're secure because they have a job, and that they are until they get pink slipped.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. It was a lot of fun having you on the podcast.
Yeah, it was great. Good to chat, and hope everyone listening got some value, some insights, and yeah, it was great to chat with you.
Oh, I know they did.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again for the call, and I look forward to the next.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we leave each other, I would ask all of you listening to please subscribe to and rate my podcast. A review would be most appreciated, and feedback is always welcome. Whether it be a comment, future topic suggestions, and/or questions you or your kids would like to have answered in the Ask Tammy column on the financialfund.ca website. Please feel free to check me out on Facebook at Financial Foundation's Children's Books, on Twitter at Financial Fun, and Instagram at financial.fun.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Financial Fun Podcast. Join Tammy Johnston again next week. For more information, please visit financialfun.ca.